Boom!
Hello.
What's up, girl?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Dr. Manny.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Asylum, Mayhem to Ensue.
Yes.
All right, let's get it. Let's get it. We picked a particularly delicious topic today, and the topic of self-care, and then we decided to combine it with accountability because for me in my past, handing over the keys to my consciousness, to my inner world, so that others could help me get where I get, has been a tumultuous space because I have trust issues. Uh,
Mhm.
I've been prone to hurt people, the parts of my life where I was, stellar level toxic. I would
Mhm.
gravitate towards other toxic people, whether it was those who were codependent, where they needed someone uh, telling them what to do, or those who were prone to being super bossy so that I could allow myself to be angry around them. Yeah, no, these are the games we play. There's a whole book, Eric Berne, Transactional Analysis, talks about games people play. And these are the subconscious things we do for strokes. I'm not talking about nasty strokes, y'all, although those could be strokes. But I'm talking about like when we're talking about maintaining ourselves as humans, we need a certain amount of contact. We're social animals. Uh,
Mhm.
the ability to let this contact in through appreciation, through gratitude, through inspiration, through curiosity, these key aspects of your subconscious that allow you to be open, appreciative, receptive to the abundance that's around. In order to do that, you have to have a pretty good relationship with yourself. And I don't mean an amazing relationship, so don't go to perfectionist mode. I'm talking about a good enough relationship where when you hear your inner voice, first of all, where you can hear your inner voice. And secondly, where when you do hear your inner voice, you don't immediately go into like a self-flagellation mode,
That's
of
huge.
inner critic, and all those things. So, in order to make this conversation make sense, I want to go ahead and uh, glide over a couple terms, just real quick, touch on some terms that we all hear and get an idea off the cuff what they mean. Self care is care of the self. Okay. And I'm saying it backwards because we always hear certain words and we just be like, okay, whatever, I know what that means. Most of us don't because we learn self care by watching those who love us love themselves. Okay. So if
Mhm.
we grew up in an environment where people were preoccupied is a parenting style. Then even when they tried to set boundaries and be nurturing, they were preoccupied with the stories in their head. Now, the stories in their head uh, were were either in the past or in the future. If it was in the past, it
Mhm.
may be that someone who was caring for themselves, taking care of the goose, so that they can take care of the family, so that they continue to lay these golden eggs. It may be that they were taught to do it in a way that assumed negative things about themselves.
Hmm.
If you don't accept who you are at a true level, often it's because you come from, and this is intergenerational curses. Often we say curses and hexes. What we believe about ourselves, we believe we're less valuable. If our family had a sense of low worth, it's almost like a
Mhm.
dynasty of low self esteem,
Hmm.
usually manifesting as a dynasty of physical abuse, again, preoccupation with self, neglect, workaholism from parents, emotional unavailability, withholding affection, which is how we model self care. When we get affection from people, we're like, oh, the self, who I am, is deserving of love from those who know me the most.
Yeah.
Now, uh, if we grew up in an environment where we often heard, what is wrong with you, as a question
Hmm.
from those who were loving us most.
Mhm.
And it might have been just idiom. It's just a trope. It's something they say because they had it said to them. But
Yeah.
embedded in that is that there's an assumption that something is wrong with you. Your unconscious mind works on questions. So
Mhm.
if you're a question, you automatically start looking for the answer, and your unconscious mind lobs what it believes to be the answer into your consciousness. Uh, Part of self care is listening to that subconscious message coming into awareness, and listening enough so that you ask yourself, is it true? Is it loving? Is it useful? Is this thought useful? Because what's coming up are your internal subconscious scripts. What's coming up is your inner voice. What's coming up is an expression of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to realize that the majority of your expression of self is implicit, as in subconscious. There's a story you tell yourself all the time, and the story either feels good or it doesn't. This is your ego narration. Part of self care is listening to the narration without beating it up and without beating yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about yourself, your soul, not ego, not what's conscious awareness, the entire machine.
Your mind, your will, and your emotions.
Yep, mind, will, and emotions. I love that. It's and your environment, those around you. So there's levels to self-care. The approach to self-care that I use with my clients is I use the metaphor of a compass: mind, body, being, and business. So when we think about these things, we think about them lovingly and gently. When we think about mind, how do I take care of my mind? I tune into my mind and I listen, because guess what? You're the only one that has access to your mind with insight.
Mm-hmm.
The word insight itself is insight. It's that inward sight you can see. You know, some people use the metaphor of a third eye. You know, some people think of it as the inner whisper, the inner knowing, felt sense. All these are signals coming from the self. A lot of us were taught to be tough, especially in toxic masculine culture, especially in hip hop culture. I grew up in hip hop culture. So a lot of times, instead of being intimate, you're aggressive, you know, where it's like your private spaces are still performative spaces. If there's parts of you that you don't believe are deserving of love. And this goes back to self-worth and self-care. Now, in order to self-care effectively, you want to get honest with yourself about your worth. And the way you decide your worth, again, is the story you're telling yourself. Because the story we tell ourselves all day, our ability to believe it is based on our implicit self-image, implicit self-concept.
Self-image and implicit self-concept.
Yeah. Now, you have an implicit self and an explicit self that you can care for. The explicit self is the self that you let out. A lot of us have made the explicit self, the one you let out, a performative self. It's the self that's the narrative you want people to believe about you. As opposed to the implicit self is the narrative you believe about yourself. And a lot of times when you're being instead of doing, instead of out there, pardon my French, doing shit and stirring up shit so people can see all the things that you've done instead of seeing to the core of your being.
Wow.
Being still, you know, busyness and activity is not meaningful, purposeful, value-aligned action. Self-care is about getting quiet enough where you can hear what you feel, and then developing the relationship with yourself where you make promises to yourself to not only listen, but to not only listen and to not judge. And to not judge means to observe with gratitude. Whatever comes up, realize that this is a part of you that got you this far. A lot of us live in survival mode because we do such little self-care. We spend so much time on what stuff looks like as opposed to what it is. What will people think? What will people say about me when I'm not around? Will people still think that I'm deserving of love? Or will I feel guilty or ashamed when I see this person again, that I let them see these facets of me? Those facets are your implicit self. You still carry them, whether they come out when you're high, drunk, scared, horny, where you just got your taxes back. You just started dating someone new. You just won the lottery. You just got a promotion. You just drove a new car home. You just moved into a neighborhood that looked better than your old friends. All that stuff. If you're doing it for other people, you're fighting this war of atrophy with self. Because the implicit self, the inside self, the one that's there when you're alone, is working his ass off or her ass off, both cheeks, so as to be socially acceptable. This is the revving of ego. This is automatic mind. Now, the second you observe ego, this is back to Eckhart Tolle. This is in New Earth and the Power of Now. The second you observe ego, it's no longer ego, it's conditioned mind, because you're no longer inside it. You're no longer bought into the story where your belief has certainty.
Mm-hmm.
That allows you to question what you think. When they say don't believe everything you think, what they're saying is surrender ego. Don't try to fight the story that you're in. Step outside the story and listen to the story and say, if I believe this story, do I feel worse or better about myself?
Oh my gosh.
That will tell you the degree to which you're identified with the story. Now, there's two ways you could be identified with a story and over-identified. You could be identified in a pride-based way where the story makes you feel good. The problem with that is it make you feel too good where you get over-identified and where you don't want that story to go away and you'll do anything to not have to save face and let people know that the illusion you were creating isn't how you feel inside. This is where we have the loud bravado, where we have like we buy virtue signaling items, expensive cars, while inside the house we might not have much, much comfort, much consistency, much stability in bill paying. This is all the stuff that no one sees, but that the implicit self be like, why am I always behind on my bills? Why can't I make more? Why do I hang out with people who treat me the way they do? All those questions, as you develop a self-care routine, and I said the first one was mind, so I'm still going to go back to those. As you develop a self-care routine, what you'll find is that you become more in love with the quiet time you spend doing nothing but observing what your mind is doing automatically, a baseline, and being grateful and appreciative for the power of your autopilot instead of automatically beating yourself up, because ultimately that's not self-awareness, that's self-consciousness. Self-consciousness means that your mind space, your working memory, the space that should be devoted to the task at hand, is carrying both signal and noise. It's not just present to what you need in the moment to be present, powerful, and to show up fully. It's also present to the whispers of self-doubt that are in your mind.
Oh my gosh.
Doubt is punishment, because in this moment, if someone somewhere in your past told you you couldn't, told you you didn't deserve, told you you would never, told you that even if you did, someone would know and take it from you, which is the foundation of the narrative of imposter syndrome. If someone told you that pursuing the things that you want is greedy, someone told you that self-care is selfish, those stories linger and they come up in the moments when self-care sometimes is telling someone STFU. Sometimes self-care is shut your mouth and we're not talking no more, like ever, even if I miss you, even if I'm lonely at night, even if I'm drinking, even if I'm rebounding from the next situation, even if I can't find a next situation, I will sit alone in my dignity.
And sit with these and process this.
Yes, I will sit with the feelings that are causing me the pain and driving me to go out and look for something beneath my standards. Because it's when you find yourself in what's called the driver's state, a state that drives you into a behavior, a state that you can't sit in. That's when you're looking at, I'm an addict to sex. I'm an addict to alcohol. I'm an addict to the internet. I'm an addict to my phone. I'm a workaholic. I'm an addict to side pieces. Whatever it is that when you do it out of a compulsion, out of a felt need to have this thing manifest, even though it's a thing that's not in alignment with your longer vision. Self-sabotage is not self-care, is the point. Okay. Now we talked about mind. When we're taking care of mind, what I find most effective is deep breaths, deep, deliberate breaths, deeper than my normal breath for a couple of minutes, followed by just letting my natural breath come in and out and just observing it. And whatever I start doing after a couple minutes of focusing on my breathing, no matter whether other thoughts came or not, other judgment thoughts, I just let my breathing go naturally after a couple minutes of focusing on it. And then in that space, I notice what comes into mind, because those are the things that are still lingering in this soup. And when you're thinking about what comes to mind for self-care, think about how you're feeling. Think about the people whose voices are coming into your mind from prior conversations, recent conversations long ago that you can't get out of your mind. conversations that have you dread seeing this person again.
Or a new version of that person.
Yeah, exactly. And if the wound is deep enough, a new version of that person, what Gertrude pointed out, because we work on these patterns. So when you've been wounded by a pattern, you become hyper vigilant for that pattern to the point where you starve yourself. You stay in survival mode so that you'll never get caught lacking again. You'll never get caught off guard. Of course, what that means is you become guarded and incapable of letting enough reality in so that you can let love, abundance, truth, and honestly, your own blessings in. Self-care is allowing the abundance in. It's allowing the growth mindset in without feeling the guilt of having to have a fixed mindset. That means that all your goals have to be perfect, outstanding. You have to be the smartest person in the room. You have to be the funniest, the best looking person in the room. This is all zero-sum game scarcity thinking, which results in the implicit self tightening your belt.
Can I weigh in on some of the things that you mentioned?
Absolutely. I welcome it.
You mentioned about like people who don't take care of themselves and sit in what they're feeling when they think that I have to be the most, the center of attention or, the most beautiful in the room and things like that. It reminds me, I don't know if you watched the show The Crown.
I have not. I keep hearing it's good.
It's really good. It's really addictive. I'm looking forward to the next season, but I think it's coming out next year. But Prince William, when he was married to Princess Diana, because of her notoriety and the way that the public perceived her, he would verbally abuse her behind the scenes of, putting her down or saying, why are you like that? Why were you speaking about me behind my back when I was doing my speech? Like all these things that he didn't have evidence that she was doing this.
Yeah, he was
show.
Yeah.
She was actually blushing in the back and people were laughing at her blushing.
Yeah.
Not her rolling her eyes or whatever. Yeah. But because he had a childhood where he was overlooked and his voice was not valued. He put that past trauma on her. And led her into spiral into her own, her own unhealthy coping mechanisms. And then there was another thing that you said. I'll come back to it if it comes back up. Okay. You can carry on with self-care. You were on the mind. I think you were going to go to another.
Yeah. So the first one is mind. And this is the technique that I teach my clients. So it's a grounding and centering technique because when you're grounded, you're focused. You're grounded in the here and now. When you're centered, you're connected to your values and you're in alignment. Okay. So the first one, and this is basically a values exercise that allows you to run through 4 sets of circuits that are pretty powerful circuits in your mind. So the first one is your mind circuit. You go to the breathing and you think about only the breathing. Don't think about judgment around the breathing or any of that stuff. The practice is creating quiet in your mind around one topic. The topic that's always with you is your breathing. So if you find that you can't focus on the breathing in a given moment, then you sure can't focus on whatever the hell you're trying to decide about because you can't even get your brain to pause long enough to let go of the model and look at a different perspective. And this happens when we're emotionally charged. So if you practice 5 minutes, the first couple minutes, you focus on your breathing. The last 3 minutes, you focus on your breathing while allowing it to return to its natural pacing. That's the first one. The second one is body. I recommend for body for my clients, I don't know how long your shower is, but 5 minutes of your shower, whether it's yelling to Siri from within the shower, 5 minutes of your shower, you focus entirely on your body. You be present to it with gratitude. You can start from head to toe or toe to head, whatever process you use to wash your body. Focus on your body. Use the opposite hand that you usually use to soap yourself or to hold your washcloth. Just for those 5 minutes, just do something different in your basic process. The most powerful one is usually whatever hand you soap with the other hand. What that does is it creates just a little bit of cognitive load so that the shower feels different now. It's not you're jolting your habit scripts. So this is not an ordinary shower. That tells your unconscious mind and your alert orient system, which is your conscious your gateway into your consciousness. It tells that it's time to create a new script. In that moment, take the time while washing with the opposite hand, start at your feet. As you're scrubbing, do a gratitude exercise real quick. And this is 5 minutes. And you don't have to go hard and grade yourself. The point is to get used to using your descriptive self without using your critical evaluative self. For a lot of us, when we're giving ourselves feedback, we're just so used to critical feedback that as soon as we look at something, we figure out what's wrong with it. And especially those of us who are in fields where knowing those details are important. We train all day. As a doctor, I train all day to figure out what the hell is wrong with somebody. I don't get sued for malpractice if I don't catch what's right with someone. But if something walk out the door that's wrong, especially in the psych unit, and they fully flip out, back in the day, that was a little pressure. We used to joke that every day we used to go home, and the whole time you were away from the hospital, you would check the news to see if someone you had let out had made the news. So you want to tune into your body, and you want to make sure that you're thinking about the parts of your body in a neutral to positive way. And this also begins with observation. Don't go in there and try to argue with the voices that are criticizing. Just notice the voices that are criticizing, allow them to feel heard, and ask yourself, who's talking? Who taught me to talk about my body like that? And what are these scripts saying? And how do these scripts make me feel? If every day you're making yourself feel fat, ugly, out of shape, weak, old, veiny, wrinkly, whatever it is that you've come to fixate on to the point where when you step in the shower, you've made it a daily torture session, or twice a day torture session, however often, or every other day, whenever you're showering for body, notice what you're programming, auto-suggesting to your body during that time. Become more deliberate for 5 of those minutes, just enough to create a practice of not beating the crap out of yourself when you're in the shower. That's self-care 2. Self-care 3 is being.
My body being.
Being, yep. Self-care 3 is being. Being is about your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others. Your relationship with yourself is how often do you let your inner voice in? How often do you listen to what you want and actually honor that? Sometimes when you wake up in the morning, what I want is to snooze for 9 more minutes at first. But what I also know is that when I'm rushing through the whole morning and kicking myself, and when I'm showing up to a meeting wondering if I put on deodorant because I shifted my routine from the well-paced, time-based one to a sprint out this door, grab the toothbrush, shave in the car. Did I bring my
I didn't even know people did that.
People do all that.
Wow.
All that. And here's the thing. It becomes a non-purposeful routine becomes this noisy thing that you do every day. And every day you promise yourself you're going to do better. I'm going to get up earlier. I'm going to be more ready, etc. But it's all about the relationship with yourself. If in the morning when the alarm goes off, you're like, I need more of this sleep. And then you realize, last night I stayed up surfing Facebook, or last night I woke up in the middle of the night beating myself up because I didn't feel ready for this meeting. When we tune in to what's really happening in that space, it allows us to then be like, I do this, and afterwards I feel bad. At lunch, I don't treat myself to a good lunch. I treat myself to a crappy lunch because I'm afraid I'm gonna lose this damn job anyway, the way I'm showing up. If we're honest with ourselves, the reason that I feel like I'm gonna lose this job is because every night I come home and I don't want to think about this job. And therefore I don't prepare for the next day. I'm not passionate about this job. It doesn't have meaning to me anymore. I don't like the people I work with, although I would love to do the good in the world that the job promised me I would do if I made a contribution. So all that comes into play when you think about relationships. Hold on 1 second. Come in. Hey, Mike, as I told you, I'm doing.
One moment, please.
Talk to your brother. Yeah, I don't mind if stuff shows up on mic. I'm okay with my parenting skills. So, you know.
I just muted it for the discussion part, but just in case
Okay.
I need it. Yeah.
Okay. See, here comes the temper tantrum. Can you go knock on your brother's door?
Real life. That's the beauty of
Yeah.
the pandemic, is that we
Yeah.
get to see people's real lives.
Yeah. But everyone, like, the thing is, Mike and I have been on camera since before, like, since he was a baby. So they all know I talk Mike the way I do. You know, my kid and I, and the part of self-care again is about these relationships and the authenticity in the relationships. And the third part of our discussion is actually going to be the ability to say no. and so that your yeses mean more. So we'll actually review that transaction. So I want to make sure I hit all the parts. Mind, body, being is about the relationships. You know, when you think about being, it's not about doing. It's not about help. Being is about sitting here and the people around me not triggering me into self-critical mode, self-consciousness mode, bringing out things that I'm poor at when I'm trying to do my best on something, reminding me of my past victories, reminding me of how I recovered from the times I've been on my back. This is your support system that reminds you not to shame yourself, even for the times when you were away. These are the people that hold you accountable for reaching out, not because they want to criticize you, but because they want to hear your voice and they appreciate you and they want to reciprocate value. So that's when we're talking about being, we're talking about the most meaningful relationships. Of course, this includes your relationship with your higher ups. And by higher ups, I mean bosses, managers, investors, if you're an entrepreneur, and even higher up, your highest power. You know, whether you believe in being connected to God, Allah, source, nature, you know, whatever frame you use, ask yourself, what is embedded in that relationship with my highest power, my highest connection? And this goes back again to the first part. What do I believe about myself? Do I believe that my highest power holds me in contempt? My highest power, an Old Testament God that is constantly trying to decide whether next week is when he's going to need to have people 2 by 2 so he can flood, and I'm not going to make it on that ark. You know, do I believe that my highest power believes that I was born in sin until I was baptized, and that I'm sinful again until I have my communion, my confirmation? You know, I grew up Catholic, so it was a guilt-based narrative. And along the way, you know, it wasn't you were born beautiful, loving, kind, and full of God's grace. It was, if you don't get baptized and you die before then, you have something to worry about, you know? So your highest power relationship kind of embedded in you tells you whether it's okay to earn money, whether it's okay to rest, whether you have a Protestant work ethic or not, whether you believe in service as something you do to enrich yourself, or whether you believe in service as something that you'll never be able to be done with because you're not valuable enough. So that no matter how much you pour in, you will always be found wanting.
You said the term Protestant work ethic.
Protestant work ethic. The American culture works on a Protestant work ethic where we work 40-hour weeks, we don't question it, and we feel guilty anytime we're working less. We feel guilty sometimes when we don't work more. And on top of that, we sort of believe that the ability to provide to our family is based on how good a person we are. How successful we are is bound to the quality of our values, the quality of life we've led, and we bind it to identity. So this leads to us plateauing, neglecting self-care, punishing ourselves by working more, and expecting life to look better because we're being crueler to ourselves. More work, less sleep, eating less expensive meals. You know, just a lot of times this is where people who think of budgeting as punishment, where they have a really tight, strict regimented budget, where there's no room for fun in the budget. In their calendar, they budget their time the same way. These are all the things I have to do. They don't put fun things on their calendar.
They want to do.
Yeah. So part of self-care is looking at your calendar each day and being like, you know, at the end of having done that, I will feel satisfied. You know, and that brings back up the third part, which is the no, saying no when necessary as part of self-care. Now, let's go to the second part. The second part is, well, no, that's the third part. The second part is,
sorry.
No problem. The importance of small promises. Yep. Small promises lead to big gains. Self-care is about integrity because all the time you have this story you're running inside your head. You're making inferences about reality. You're coming to conclusions. You're activating your confirmation bias. You're living in your stereotypes. You're navigating your schemas. You're either trusting your beliefs or distrusting your beliefs, yet still believing them.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Especially on Clubhouse, I'm hearing more and more people who believe, but then it's like,
yeah,
but this.
That's self.
Take into consideration this. I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah. When you're being confident on the outside and it makes you feel like a fake, it makes you feel sneaky, it makes you feel incompetent, it makes you feel like you're waiting to be discovered, like imposter syndrome stuff, then there's a delta between your implicit self-esteem and your explicit self-esteem. The engine running inside is different from what you're showing on the outside. So working on implicit self-esteem, which is how much you like yourself, is used to be a big thing. It used to be, how can we have these kids have high self-esteem? As it turns out, it's not so much about liking yourself as accepting yourself. You shouldn't be doing all that judgment because self-esteem is about ego. It's about evaluation. So now the first promise is to hear yourself non-judgmentally. Of course, that means this is sort of a meta promise because when you do it, it reveals a lot. When you notice yourself breaking promises to yourself, and the first promise was to not judge yourself, this is super, super meta. So if you got to listen to this 2 or 3 times, that's cool. Once we have these transcripts out, I think we're going to make this part nice and bold, Gertrude, so folks know this is the meat and potatoes. When we make small promises to ourselves and the people we trust the most, we get the feeling of making true promises. We under-promise and we over-deliver. What time will you be there? I will be there at noon. Okay, the person shows up at noon. They did their best. They made whatever sacrifices. They didn't get their nap in the morning. They took a shorter shower. They rushed through their meal. Whatever it took for them to get there at noon, they honored the promise. This is the nature of willpower and won't power. Willpower is
power and want power.
Won't power.
I haven't heard that.
Willpower is the ability to overcome your own resistance. Won't power is the ability to not do stuff that's going to self-sabotage, going to lead you to pain later. Lead us not into temptation. That's won't power. You get startled by something like, I've always wanted that, but what I want more is the thing that my higher self has. This is the concept of activating your small promises. Your small promises, when you're breaking them to yourself, what you'll notice is that you guilt and you shame yourself. We all do. Now, based on the kind of guilt and shame you were taught, you might lead yourself to a deflated, disempowered, disabled, just boiling in cortisol hypofrontal stage. A hypofrontal stage is when you got so caught up in your stories, these negative self-flagellating stories, that created pain. It activated your amygdala. It put you into fight-flight mode where you suddenly believed that you were going to be ostracized from your tribe, which is social fear, exile, or eaten by a saber tooth, which is physical fear, or have the crap beat out of you by a tribe member who can fight better than you or who has more social support, getting jumped and then kicked out of the tribe. So the core of keeping promises is that you don't, on a subconscious level, feel out of integrity, as if you're cheating the system that you believe yourself to be in. When you don't believe you're cheating the system, or you don't believe you're deserving of the bounty that this abundant system that we all find ourselves in, then you feel of low status, of low worth. Then it becomes time to ask yourself, these promises I'm making, do I believe I can keep them? And then it becomes a matter of checking the integrity between your thoughts and your words.
So how do people do it at the altar?
You say at the altar?
Yes.
When they say I do, when they promise forever?
Yes.
They gotta mean it.
They do have to mean it.
Yeah.
They do have to mean it. and they do say I will, or I do, depending on the wedding you go to. But like I've heard conversations, or I've heard people say that people who are over honest and they share everything that's on their mind. They're like,
I know that guy. I know that guy. Unfiltered.
Is that wait? You know what? I want to do that, but I don't know. I don't know if I have it in me to keep that. And people are basically telling you who they are.
Yeah,
believe them the first time.
Yeah,
I think Inlia Fixed My Life. That lady.
Yeah.
If a man tells you who he is, believe him the first time. Because some women are over gracious and they're like, wait, no, he will grow out of it. No. It's like we told you day one.
Much.
Pardon?
Don't believe in people who don't believe in themselves. You know, that's a rule.
Don't invest. Don't put weight where they don't. There's no foundation within themselves to hold up that weight. So,
and it's sad to say, but ultimately, when you're checking people's integrity, you're checking their self-efficacy, their internal locus of control, which means that they believe that they control their internal climate. Okay. Now, this is the difference between expectation and intention. An expectation in your mind on a information level, expectations are associated. They're bound in your associative cortex to emotions. If I expect you to be somewhere at 8, when I get there, if you're not there, I don't have an action cued. I get pissed off unless I showed up there intentionally. I show up there with an intention to meet you at 8. If you're late, I'm still going to honor my intention. I'm not going to get in my feelings. If you don't show up, I'm still going to honor my intention because I'm going to get what I came to get. And I'll make sure you get what you came to get to the extent that you're deserving of it and aware of your deserving of it. Because you don't give people things that they're not aware they're deserving of because too soon. You don't give people man the fish unless he's starving, where you give him one fish so he doesn't absolutely die. After that, you teach that person to fish. I had an MF waiting for somebody, but yeah. So the small promises.
I have to watch that again. I'm glad this is recorded. I'm wrapping my head because that sounded very important, but I'm going to watch this again.
Yeah. The way that it works is you can tell who can keep promises because they don't have wiring to back out of promises. The people who have poor appreciation and poor gratitude and who are constantly complaining about stuff, they're not going to keep no promise because you're going to do what you did for them and they're going to, in their mind, reconstrue what you did so that it wasn't enough. It wasn't in time, too little, too late, a day late, $1 short. You didn't do it the way they wanted it. You didn't hear what they really wanted, even though they told you one thing and they weren't communicating. You should have been able to read their minds. There's all kind of different layers of toxic, but ultimately, all you need to worry about is, and not even worry, all you need to focus on is your ability to keep promises. Because what happens is, as you keep these tiny promises and you become a person of character, a person who is committed to these things that you promise yourself. I'm a person who gets up early. I'm a person who exercises. I'm a person who writes daily. I'm a person who responds to anger with compassion. Once you make these declarations, these promises to yourself, you back them up with affirmations and you promise yourself you will honor the affirmations. And then the next promise is to listen to how you sound during the affirmation. These are small promises. No one is going to know about them except you. And here's the other part. The person you trust enough to keep at a tight level of disclosure, enough to dump what's in your mind to them. And why this is important, and I'll say it right here with Gertrude, the conversation that Gertrude and I have since we started working together, since she joined the team and started making amazing contributions, is something to the effect of trusting her with what's on my mind. I don't trust people.
He said that at the interview.
I was telling what I said.
There are things, like I have a whole signed NDA and everything. He's like, there are things I'm going to tell you. We need to make sure. So I'm just like, okay, I am fully eyes wide open, understanding of this work relationship. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a large part of the stuff that I keep in my mind, because I mean, all people know I was trained for a living to literally talk to strangers all day hear all their business, and then give them honest advice, like honest, truthful, empirically based advice about something that's entirely in their head. What that means is I had to train myself to realize what's in people's heads, and different people are different frequencies. And as such, you can't let into people's head what they're not ready to hear yet. Yeah. Yeah.
Or they, but then there's the ego part, though.
That's what they're not ready to hear it.
Ask you, oh, what do you think about me?
Yeah.
And then you tell them, like,
hear about yourself.
Pardon?
What are you ready to hear about yourself is what I tell you.
What are you ready? That's a great question to a question. What are you ready to hear?
Yeah, because I can see it all. That's my personality. I tell you, I can see it all. It's just, because we're signaling creatures. We signal implicit self, which is the self that we don't want people to know about unless we have self-acceptance. This is the core of narcissism. Core of narcissism is we love our performative self, and we've identified with it. This is pride-based identification, which I mentioned earlier. And we loathe our other self, because our other self, we were always taught that self was not deserving of love and attention. Anytime we performed, we got attention, we got love. And anytime we showed little bits of that implicit self, maybe our parents got quieter, our parents became less supportive. And a lot of times these were parents who were inconsistent anyway, so they weren't capable of keeping small promises to themselves. And as such, they weren't honoring their own promise of maintaining space for unconditional love. And as such, when they see their kids underperforming for societal standards, whatever standards they've adopted, they develop a fear that their kids won't survive in society. And this is particularly true of people who have not made their way up beyond what's labeled as the middle class. Folks who feel as if they are at the lower end of the financial curve, the success and the accomplishment curve, and their family has been there for generations. They're more afraid to make promises because thus far promises haven't worked really well for them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or even their self-promises has worked for them.
Yeah, no, because a lot of their self-promises were made from a place of external locus of control. We make promises to ourselves, and then when we're hit with someone who's more powerful than us and either unsupportive or irrationally coercive, which means not only are they coercive and we're a captive audience, they're misguiding us based off the noise in their head that they've had handed down to them. Even as they made it to a position of power, they did not make it to a position of fulfillment.
Ooh, say that again.
Right. It is what it is. When you don't make it to a position of fulfillment, the power don't feel good because all you're thinking is, oh God, as powerful as I am, and as much as I've done to people, hurt people, at some point I'm gonna be out of power, and the person in power, he gonna have something for me, or she gonna have something for me. And we do this in all.
My gosh.
So we become one up, one down people. And this is one up, one down is the drama triangle, which those of you who are in Precision Mindset, the Get Committed group, we have the free PDF. Do we have the free PDF in Mayhem too? Let's make that one available in Mayhem for the folks who've given their emails.
Okay, if you send your email address to Phil, it's Phil Reynolds. If you just send him a DM, he will provide you the PDF. Yeah,
Phil's our marketing manager. He keeps the marketing moving smoothly and ultimately manages the marketing team. So if you can get that to Phil, he'll make sure that you get the PDF. He'll also make sure you're on my damn mailing list because this is business, duh. Yeah. Anyway, good talk.
Okay.
Welcome to Asylum. Mayhem to ensue.
Move on to making your no.
Yes. No? Yes. Okay, cool. I want to give one transition. It's important to saying no and meaning it by keeping promises to yourself allows your yeses to be more meaningful. Because when you say yes to someone, your yes means I will with willpower, which means that you have the capability to say I won't, which is won't power, to those that are not your priority, those who approach you with scarcity and urgency, people who trigger your FOMO, people who trigger your insecurity, people who sit there and spot the things that you need and pretend that they'll give them to you on the condition that you deserve and earn them.
Or there's a expiration date for their performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm only doing this until this point.
Yeah.
Then you're going to see the real me. When I believe that the love or the time has grown deep enough
Yeah.
for you to whether deserve to see the real me or you've invested so much into whatever this is and you don't want to back out after seeing the real me. I've seen so many versions of that.
Yep. And that's red flags. The purpose of red flags, including watching how people respond when you say no, is so that you develop relationships with people where a no or yes is interpreted as a representation of your beliefs. They don't take it personally and decide that, oh, you're telling me no, and it's important to me, blah, blah, blah. What's going on in your life that you're telling me no? And who are you telling the yeses to? So I know that, you have these different priorities. Sometimes the yeses, I need to go home and take care of my kids. Sometimes the yeses, I need to go home and play with my nuts. Pardon my French, Gertrude. Sometimes it's self-care time. I need to be in a space where I'm not thinking about anything, including the issues that you intend to dump on me if we go out to lunch, if we go out to coffee, if we hop on a Zoom. You got to protect your energy. The first promise is self-care. Take care of the goose. When they say pay yourself first, they mean pay yourself in money, pay yourself in time, pay yourself in peace, pay yourself in delicious food, pay yourself in beautiful music and comfortable clothing. Don't pay yourself in trying to impress other people who ultimately will constantly have you on a treadmill with a carrot and a stick in front of you and behind you. That's the nature of conditional love. Those people are conditioning you to love yourself with an external locus of control. And what that does, it connects your ego to their narrative. This is called enmeshment, entanglement. When they trigger you from a no to a reluctant yes, what they've done is they activated your sense of scarcity around relationships. They've convinced you that you need them bad enough where you need to sacrifice whatever promise you made to yourself. And the second you do it, I promise you, you have violated your boundaries. There can be no compassion without boundaries. There's nothing that you can do for someone from a position of resentfulness and coercion that will have the meaning they need to have. Because as soon as you do it for them, they're going to do some bullshit. They're going to tell you, you didn't do it like you meant it. You didn't say it like you meant it. You did it, but your heart wasn't in it. You did it, but you didn't do it right. They're going to have whatever feedback led to you wanting to tell them no anyway. And then you're going to be pissed off that you did it because you went for bait and switch, because you didn't trust your intuition, because you let your ego and your fear be activated and you went out of character. Going out of character as a result of interacting with toxic people or toxic interpersonal dynamics is self-loathing. It's a projection of self-loathing. It's projective identification. It's emotions that you have not allowed yourself to express and feel, that you're bringing people around you who are treating you in such a way that you momentarily give yourself permission to step out of character. Anytime you're out of character and out of integrity, you are putting shame, guilt, loss of dignity, and regret into your self-concepts. And with self-concepts, the way the file was put away is the way the file is retrieved. Any negative emotion lead to you suppressing your memories so quickly that you develop a habit of automatically suppressing them, which is called repression.
But there's a time when it all comes public.
And it all comes blowing up because you pushed it down. When you push it down, it's not organized. The right thoughts don't come up at the right time. You get triggered and you're like, oh shit, this is not an organized thought.
So you saw me out of character. You saw me out of the performance version of myself, but it was actually always there.
Yeah. That was the implicit self, the part that you hide. That's your shadow. The work that we do in Mayhem, I adopted the model of shadow work. So what we do here is we get to know the parts of us that we're not allowed to have out in public, the impolite parts. But honestly, when we spend time with the impolite parts, with a group of others who are also doing it, the nature of ethos is that suddenly being rude becomes polite. Let you be in Mayhem trying to be offended too quick, and you will quickly realize that that is not decorum. You're out of ethos.
And every Facebook group has, or even Clubhouse room has their own culture set by the moderator, the leader, the founder.
Yep.
and things like that. So yeah, it's
which soon we'll have our Mayhem Clubhouse, which will be private. We'll be letting y'all in first. Those of you who are in Clubhouse and who've qualified. There's a process to everything.
Yes.
So that way, when I say yes to you, it will be more meaningful because of the people we will say no to in the Clubhouse. You know, so I want to make sure that this part is tied to the other aspects. The first part was being aware that self-care comes from self-acceptance. When we accept ourselves instead of focusing on self-esteem, which is about liking ourselves, I ain't got to like myself because a lot of times I'm an asshole. And I know it. And I see it. I'm like, look at this dude. He is flagrantly assholing today. Yeah. But that's a part of me. Michael Jackson. It's just another part of me. And that's that look what you made me do. You know,
people who know they can be an a-hole determine when to be it, because
that's it. You got to know when.
Because there's some people that have it on all the time, like
that's their personality. That's not being out of character. That's their character.
That is the character.
Yeah. And here's the funny thing. Every group of friends has an asshole with them. We have our toxic friend from childhood, you know, and we keep them around. And when they're toxic to other people, we're like, yeah, I've known him since I was a kid. I've known her since I was a kid. She's harmless. She's an asshole though. And she's toxic. Like, you see, that was it The Hangover? No, Hot Tub Time Machine. Hot Tub Time Machine. It's very vulgar. You probably wouldn't feel for it. You know. But one of the main things in Hot Tub Time Machine is when they're clowning about the one dude that's their crew asshole. Like, they talk about him like a dog all 3 seasons, all three releases. Is it 3? No, 2. Is it 2 or 3? I think it's only 2. Okay, so anyway, there might be 3, but either way, my point is that through all 3, this dude is a flaming a-hole. But guess what? As self-loathing as he is, he's really good at putting himself first. He made sure to exploit others. And the thing about it is exploiting others is not self-care, because what you're doing is you're not projecting your values out. Wait. I take that back. Because we talked about values. Some people, their value is power, and they will exploit you and not feel bad about it at all. And that is self-care. But the complexity is that what you want for peace is, as you learn to say no and yes, what you develop is the ability of keeping promises to yourself. The promises you keep to yourself are around your boundaries. This allows you to access compassion for others. By accessing compassion to others, you get to practice compassion for yourself, because you get to be like, you know, well, I'm awful nice to people, yet I surround myself by people who are judgmental of me. And when I'm alone, I judge myself, and that needs to stop now. That's where all these ideas lead when you actually listen to what I'm telling you here. So if you missed parts of this and you're finding that there are questions I didn't address, go ahead and leave them in the comments. As always, I want to let you guys know that I'm offering one-on-one work. Ultimately, we're still deciding between 10 and 15 people. I may decide that 10 people is going to be my one-on-one load, and then we'll be working in groups. So that was a scarcity urgency trigger, because I'm taking folks in. I've got, I think 40 of you guys from in here work with me on a pretty regular basis. Some of you from within that set work with me weekly like clockwork. Your spot is safe, because I mean, if you're currently working with me, your spot is safe. And I want to explain that even as prices recently went up, those of you who received the promise of grandfathering, whatever price you come in working with me, your price will stay in that range. Because as I've told you guys, as we're doing more publicity, I'm going to go ahead and keep my prices so that I'm living in the way that is self-caring. I'm worth it. And guess what? You guys are worth the focused, present version of me. So I do less work for a higher price so that you're getting more value. I'm super focused, super present, super energized, and I'm super committed to you getting your best results. So those of you who choose to work one-on-one with me, you can reach out for the for the discovery call, what's the link? Calendly.com/Dr. Manny. And discovery calls, we'll get together. We'll talk about where you are, where you want to get. And my discovery calls are strategy calls. We're going to get their work right in there. We're going to talk about what's real, what's getting in your way, and you will have some insights in the discovery call. I promise you that. And we'll see if we're a good fit. If you want to instead, or both, join my private group where we're actually doing the work weekly, I'm stepping through some of these models, some of these ideas, some of these tools, tips, and mindsets, then join the Get Committed community. We will have the link in the comments below. What else? Did I leave anything out, Gertrude?
Every Monday, we have a similar version of this, but it's more focused to mindset.
Yes.
At the top of the week, Dr. Manny will share a mindset tip that will help you, be able to apply throughout the week. So I think last week was procrastination.
Yep. We looked at procrastination. We broke it down. The week before was self-sabotage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just breaking it down, giving yourself time to realize, wait, am I doing this in my own life? Okay, let me apply these tips that I've been given so that I can be better effective in my own life, in my relationships, and in my workplace. So yes, you did mention business point. Yeah. Mind, body.
Did I left out business?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Yeah. Business. That's easy. Business is about being honest with yourself about how you're getting your money now and imagining how you plan on getting your money for the rest of your life. Those of you who buy into the retirement myth, good luck with that. Those of you who realize that the longer you're on this earth, the more of your perceived value that is available, mainly because you're better at vetting who you surround yourself with to reflect your value, and better surrounding yourself with people who reciprocate by cutting checks and appreciating the work you do, the more you earn. I think, was it Warren Buffett that said he earned more in his 80th year than in his whole life?
Wow.
Or something like that. I don't know that it was one of the boys said something to the effect of, be aware that each day, each moment, each experience that you choose to let in as an open-minded person makes you more expressive of the value that is within you, more manifesting, actualizing of your potential. Okay, so business mind is, what do I want my life to look like? How realistic is it that can be accomplished with what I'm doing now? How are the ways that I can change what I'm doing now so that I feel better, so that I serve better, I have a greater impact, and I add more value to the world? So that's the business part. Mind, body, being, in business. Thank you for catching that, Gertrude.
No problem. I was just speaking like, wait, there was this part that
Yeah. I'm super nonlinear as a thinker. So we're trying out this linear thing. And that's another thing. We do virtual reality work as well. So I'll be talking about that more in Precision Mindset. That's sort of, some of you guys have heard me talk about that, but it's sort of, I spent a couple decades in the video game and virtual reality industry. So I am a software engineer in addition to my psychiatric training. So I'm all about virtual care, feedback, and all that stuff. But I'll talk to you guys more about the super advanced, the good in Precision Mindset.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, I think that's what we have time for today. If you would like to get committed, you can join the Get Committed Facebook community. And if you would like to schedule an appointment, you can go to the link that was shown prior. So until next time, Dr. Manny has a juicy topic next week. And he is going to be doing a competition.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So next week's topic is going to be a sexual topic. And so as I've mentioned to you guys, some of this stuff, occasionally Gertrude will sit out, and I'm going to invite one of you guys to co-host. Mm-hmm. What I would like to do is this week, I would like some folks to volunteer to host. I want one co-host, preferably a lady, because I'm not biased, but I'm not trying to be a bunch of dudes sitting here talking about sex. No sausage fest for me. So
You can join in the comments.
Yeah, y'all dudes can be in the comments, but as far as sitting around here, two guys sword fighting, we're not doing that next Saturday.
So there will be a competition. Phil will get a graphic made and explained of what that takes. So
nominate yourself
for that,
and then we're gonna vote on who should co-host our sex combo. Gertrude, can you plug your ears so I can tell them what the working title is? The working title is "Why Does Good Dick and Good Pussy Make You Lose Your Mind?" Right? If you think you can help me co-host that topic, bring it. All right. So
okay, and I will not be present, but I'll be back the next week if Dr. Manny invites me back to the next topic.
Of course I will, duh.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, Gertrude.
You're welcome. Well, everyone have a great weekend. It's been great. I hope you gleaned from this and can apply it to your life. So take care. Bye.
All right.